Righto team, so today I'm going to cover something that I've never actually publicly discussed before, and that is why I sold Rosie the Rally, which if we rewind a few years, that bike seemed to be my forever bike, and over a few things that sort of turned out to be why that bike wasn't the bike I thought it was, and why I eventually chose to sell it, and what's possibly coming next. So stick around, we're going to go into why I sold Rosie the Rally, the reasons behind it, and what I'm looking for in my next motorcycle, which might just be behind this curtain behind me. Alright team, so it has nearly been 2 years since I sold Rosie the Rally, which was my CRF 250L Honda Rally. And that bike was quite a wee gem. It helped me grow as a motorcyclist. I took it on some pretty cool adventures. I did some riding I never would have dreamed of, but eventually it got to the point where I felt I had to get rid of it. And there are multiple reasons for why I had to get rid of it. Number one was mental health, which, yeah, motorcycles are usually something that improve mental health, but in my case, I felt like the Honda was doing exactly the opposite. I had been riding for, 15 years or so, and my first adventure bike was my CRF 250L Honda Rally. So that bike was a former press bike. I rode it when I worked for Bike Rider magazine a number of times. I tested it for the magazine, I took it to the Cold Kiwi Motorcycle Rally and absolutely fell in love with the thing. So at the time, the Honda Rally, it really occupied a space that no other bike did in that class, and that was, it was very affordable, it had anti-lock braking which was switchable, it looked absolutely awesome, and it had a decent amount of protection. So all those combined made it sort of the perfect start for someone wanting to get into adventure motorcycling. Now I could have gone for something like a Suzuki DRZ 400E or a Yamaha WR250R for instance. I actually test rode the Kawasaki KLX 250S, which a friendly local dealer allowed me to demo. I tried to ride the WR, but not for love or money could I actually get a test ride on one. I went to the local dealership, go, hey, I'm interested in this, I'm cross-shopping it between the Honda Rally and this. I hear this has got a better engine and better suspension, I'd like to check that out before I buy. And they turned around and went, nah, no test rides. I wasn't going to buy it at that stage then, so I bought the Honda, and for the first couple of years I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was great, it was comfortable, I was able to get out onto lots of gravel roads and start building up my riding experience. Then it got to the point where I started to outgrow the bike suspension, so I invested about 1,500 New Zealand dollars at the time on getting Moto SR to upgrade the fork and rebuild the rear shock. Now that absolutely transformed the bike. It made it into a bit of a lightweight weapon, and it made riding it off-road so much easier. All of a sudden I was able to jump it, to hit whoops really hard, and really push the limits of what that bike could do. So by upgrading the suspension on that Honda, that was without a doubt the best value you can do for that platform, is upgrading the suspension. Out of the box, it is quite frankly woeful, and Honda really could do a lot better. They still haven't. It's still pretty crappy from what I understand in the new 300s, but yeah, it is well worth spending the money on upgrading it. So that lasted me another couple of years until I started doing some more harder adventure riding. And that is where things started to fall apart for me. So the Honda Rally, it's got, in the 250L form, about 24 horsepower peak. That's measured at the crank, so taking driveline losses into account, you've got 20 horsepower or less at the back wheel. Now that bike was pretty sweet, I could get around, but as you start riding it in more difficult riding conditions, such as riding it on beaches or taking it off into slick clay rides, you start to really find the stress points of that bike. And for me, that was the clutch and also tyre choice. Tyre choice is easy enough to fix, but that clutch, even with an upgraded heavy duty clutch pack with heavy duty springs, I was still burning the clutch out, and that was probably most likely due to rider error, but still I was struggling. The gearing, I fiddled around with it, I changed my sprockets front and rear, trying to find the perfect gearing to let me do all the riding I wanted to do, and I just simply wasn't getting there. And the crux of it came down to my last ride on that bike, which was the One Hard Day ride in 2023. Now, One Hard Day, it's run by Motomapped. It used to be called One Big Day until they worked out that it was guaranteed to rain, and when you're based out on the west coast near Raglan, that base is clay and it makes life miserable if you're not a highly skilled rider on an enduro platform bike. So the Honda, it was heavy for its size. It was 157 kilos, and my riding skills had reached a point where I couldn't really make the most of what I was doing. I was trying too hard. I was mucking things up and making life hard for myself. Awesome rides. My friend Doug still rides it to this day. He literally just finished it yesterday on his 690 Adventure. Much better bike for that hardcore riding. But the little Honda, it struggled. I was struggling, and I was losing the joy for adventure riding, doing that sort of riding. And with all the chasing the dragon, trying to find good, hard, challenging rides to do, it was getting to the point where it was really eating away at my mental health. So I started thinking of it more like it was chasing the dragon. You're always after that fix, like a drug addict, always after trying to get out, have adventures. When you've got two small children at home that you are the primary caregiver for, and you don't have a lot of money because you're a primary caregiver, it starts eating away at you, your inability to make the most out of that motorcycle and get out there and do the stuff. So New Zealand, we're blessed, we've got lots of gravel roads, we've got lots of places to explore, but that harder core riding, it's reserved for expensive rides like One Hard Day, the Long Way Round. There's a number of organised rides you can do, but sitting there on your own, trying to do it on a budget, it really becomes quite difficult. And I was just frankly not enjoying myself. So that was one reason for getting out of the Honda. It was doing my head in, seeing its wasted potential, not being able to get out and use it, and essentially getting frustrated with what I saw as its limitations, which in hindsight the bike was still probably more capable than I was. But I reached a plateau and I just simply wasn't getting out of it what I wanted. The other thing that was getting on my mind was just how toxic the New Zealand adventure riding community was becoming. So opinions are like arseholes, everyone's got one. But when it came to the adventure riding community in late 2023, it was becoming a very toxic space. People were complaining and attacking each other over tyre choice, oil choice, bike choice. Unless you were riding essentially a full-on enduro bike, you were essentially viewed as a wannabe. Or if you had something like a Tenere or a larger adventure bike, people would either think you were God's gift or that you were a wannabe idiot. And sitting on the Honda, it didn't really fit in any of those categories. It wasn't the cool new twin-cylinder adventure bike, and it wasn't an enduro bike. It was this weird little road bike engined dual sport, and it was kind of getting me down. And not wanting to spend time on the internet, listening to everyone whinge, I kind of decided, you know what, I'm going to quit cold turkey. So I listed Rosie for sale, first at a price I thought was quite reasonable, and then I quickly found out that that bike was not worth anywhere near what I valued it for. As they say, if you mod out a bike, you're throwing your money away, essentially. Nobody's going to expect that the mods that you've put on a motorcycle are worth what you paid for. So that $1,500 in suspension upgrades made it great for the next rider and the rider after them, but I didn't get my money's worth in terms of return when it came to selling the bike. So in the end, I sold that bike for $6,000 and walked away. Bye, Rosie.
Bye.
There's another reason why I don't really want to be in that adventure segment anymore either, and that is because I've got access to proper enduros now. So through my new job, I have been very lucky to ride the modern Beta range, and I've also been able to ride the new Triumph TF range of dirt bikes. And for me, I get a lot more enjoyment out of riding a proper bike designed for the purpose than a compromise, which, let's face it, all adventure bikes are a compromise between road riding ability and off-road ability. And there is no happy place in between, I've found, with my experience. You've either got a bike with good power for the road, good riding protection, but it's heavy when you get off-road, or you've got a lightweight bike for off-road, but it's gutless or vibey or uncomfortable on the road. There's no unicorn. It's, as much as we like to try and search for it, the CF Moto 450MT appears to be the current unicorn that everyone wants to ride, being a 450cc adventure twin that's price conscious. It's under $10,000 here in New Zealand and sounds great. Has a 21-inch front wheel, adjustable suspension, all the good stuff, but there's nothing that really quite hits the mark as to the perfect adventure unicorn. And for me, for quite a while, the Honda was that, and then it wasn't. So moving forwards, obviously I've stepped away from adventure riding as a focus. I get my off-road kicks on proper dirt bikes now, and for me as a personal motorcycle, my next bike is going to be more road focused. It's going to be something that I can hop on and enjoy, not just me, but also my wife as pillion, potentially my children as they get bigger and I can get riding gear for them. And it's going to be something that I can look at, I can hop on, and it'll put a grin on my face. So for the last 2 years, I've been trying to work out what that bike is going to be, and I finally nailed it down. So that bike is actually right behind me right now. I'm going to fade out the screen, I'm going to turn it on and you can hear it. Put your guesses down below as to what it is, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.